There are 10 riding mowers sitting on American sales floors right now that I would walk straight past, and by the time we're done, you'll know which ones they are, what fails on each, roughly what the repair costs, and what to buy instead. That's the whole deal. No suspense, no buildup. Here's the part that surprises people. Almost nobody who gets burned on a riding mower gets burned on the engine. The engine is usually the last thing standing. What kills these machines is a cast aluminum box, about the size of a bread loaf, bolted between the rear wheels, that nobody mentions in the showroom, and that most owners' manuals describe with one word: sealed. That box costs more to replace than a third of what you paid for the whole tractor, and the company that actually builds it publishes a service schedule for it that the company that sold you the mower chose not to print. I've had a lot of these apart, enough that I've got a preferred order of operations for dropping a transaxle out of a lawn tractor. Wheels off first, then the fender pan, and you shove a floor jack under the case so it doesn't drop on your forearm when the last bolt comes out. That's not a brag, it's just where my opinions come from. Hands, not brochures. Consumer Reports feeds a lot of what's coming. Their current riding mower reliability picture is built on member surveys run in the fall of 2023, 2024, and 2025, covering 18,560 gas riding mowers bought new between 2015 and 2025. And that's a big enough pile of real owners that I take it seriously even where it disagrees with me. Where it does disagree with me, I'll say so. 2 things to hang on to while we go. Number 4 on this list isn't a brand at all. It's a single component fitted under millions of tractors, from green ones to orange ones to the cheap ones. And the rebuild kit for it runs north of $400 on a mower that costs $2,000. And number 9 is a machine that got recalled last November, about 650 units, for a steering part that can make it buck under you. Some of those are still out there on used lots with nobody in the transaction aware of it. The thread running through all 10 is the same. What's printed on the sticker, horsepower, deck width, the badge on the hood, is not what decides whether this thing is still cutting grass in 2036. What decides that is underneath, and it takes about 90 seconds with a flashlight to check. Let's go. Number 1. The Craftsman T110. This is the machine at the very bottom of Consumer Reports' tested riding mowers, the lowest overall score of the lot. It's a 42-inch deck, a 500cc single-cylinder Briggs & Stratton, rated at 17.5 horsepower, a 7-speed manual transmission, and a list price of about $2,190, which puts it among the cheapest riders you can buy new. CR's complaints are specific, and they're the kind that matter. Handling was marked down because of the gear drive system. There's no high back seat, which sounds like nitpicking until you've spent 2 hours on it. It was loud in testing, both at the operator's ear and at 25 feet. Mulching and bagging were merely average. Predicted reliability and owner satisfaction both came in low. The only places it did well were side discharging and cutting evenness. And look, cutting evenly is the job, so that's not nothing. But here's what makes me confident this isn't one grumpy test unit. Go look at the reviews on Craftsman's own website, where the manufacturer controls the page and has every incentive to make it look good. It sits around 2.7 stars there. It does a bit better at Ace and at Lowe's, in the mid to high 3s. Owners describe seats with no support, controls that fight them, batteries dead on arrival, and at least one camshaft failure. When a machine can't crack 3 stars on the maker's own site, the maker knows. The gear drive is the real story. 7 forward speeds, a clutch pedal, and you pick a gear and live with it. On a flat half-acre with nothing in the way, that's genuinely fine. It's how riding mowers worked for 30 years, and they got the job done. On anything with slopes, obstacles, or a lot of stopping and starting around beds, You spend the whole session in the wrong gear. That's what poor handling means in practice. It isn't a defect. It's a design decision made to hit a price, and you're the one who pays it back in aggravation, one Saturday at a time. Which brings up something I want to plant now because it's going to come back. The cheapest thing on any riding mower is always the drive system. Always. That's where the money gets taken out. Number 2, and this one's short. The 30-inch rear engine rider bought for a yard it was never meant to cut. Take the Troy-Bilt TB30B. 10.5 horsepower, 344cc Briggs, 30-inch steel deck, 6-speed shift on the go, 2-year limited warranty. Troy-Bilt is admirably clear in their own specs. This is for gated yards up to half an acre. Half an acre. The mower isn't the problem. People buying it for 2 acres because it's the cheapest thing with a seat. That's the problem. You'll finish eventually, and then you'll do it again in 5 days, and the drive belt and that little transmission will eat the difference. If your lot genuinely is small and gated and flat, one of these is a perfectly sensible purchase, and I'd not talk you out of it. If it isn't, you're buying a machine that will be worn out before it's paid off. Number 3, the entry-level tractor with the famous badge. I'll use the John Deere S100 because it's the one people ask me about most. Green paint carries enormous weight in this country, and it's earned. Deere took very good reliability scores in CR's latest survey data for both lawn tractors and zero turns, and that's a real result. But it's a brand-level result, and you're not buying a brand, you're buying one machine. So look at what the S100 actually is. 17.5 horsepower, 500 cc, a 42-inch stamped steel deck in 13 gauge, a Tuff Torq TLT200 transaxle, 500 pounds of towing capacity, and a 2-year or 120-hour bumper-to-bumper warranty, whichever comes first. That last number is the one nobody reads. 120 hours. If you mow an acre and a half weekly, and it takes you an hour and a half, you're burning about 40 hours a season. So the coverage runs out somewhere in year 3, except the calendar clock stops you at 2 anyway. The warranty was never a statement about how long the machine lasts. It's a statement about how long the company is willing to be responsible, and those are entirely different sentences. I'm not telling you the S100 is junk. It isn't. I'm telling you that if you're paying a premium for the badge, make sure you know which parts of the machine the badge actually bought you. Because on the entry models, it bought you paint, a dealer network, and a hood. Number 4. This is the one I flagged, and it's the most useful thing in the whole list. Any lawn tractor riding on a Tuff Torq K46, if you have hills or you tow. The K46 is an integrated hydrostatic transaxle. Pump and motor and gears, all in one aluminum case, driven by a belt off the engine. It's fitted under an enormous share of residential lawn tractors, and has been for decades. Different colors, different badges, same box. When you press the pedal, you're tilting a swash plate that changes how much oil the pump moves, and that oil drives the motor that turns your wheels. Think of it as pushing a stream of oil around a loop, and your pedal is just deciding how hard you're pushing. What kills them is heat. Not dirt, not abuse in the dramatic sense. Heat. Heat cooks the oil. The cooked oil stops carrying a film between the pistons and the swash plate. Those parts wear, and worn parts let pressure slip past instead of turning your wheels. What that feels like from the seat is very specific, and this is your early warning system. It climbs the hill fine when it's cold, and 45 minutes later, hot, it won't. Then there's a whine on the climb. Then one day it just sits there with the engine screaming and the wheels not caring. Owners report this at every hour reading you can imagine. Some report it around 500. Some are at 900 and going. I've seen a man post that he drained one at 585 hours, and the fluid was in better shape than it had any right to be. I'm not going to give you an average failure hour, Because the honest answer is that the reported spread is so wide that an average would be a lie dressed up as data. What I'll give you instead is the pattern. Flat lawn, no trailer, no snow blade. These things go the distance. Slopes, a loaded cart, or a snowplow in January. That's where they die young. Here's the part that ought to bother you. Tuff Torq, the company that makes it, publishes an oil change schedule. First change around 50 hours, then every couple hundred after that, and they recommend a 5W50 full synthetic. Meanwhile, these units commonly leave the factory filled with conventional 10W30. And plenty of tractors are delivered with no drain plug fitted at all. Guys drop the transaxle, split the case, drill and tap their own drain holes, and refill it, and report the machine climbing hills like new afterward. Why the factory fill is conventional oil in a box whose declared enemy is heat, I have never seen properly explained by anybody. My read is that it's a few dollars a unit across millions of units. But that's my read, not a fact I can hand you, and I'd rather say so than dress up a guess. The safety note belongs here, because this is the item about hills. Riding mowers are not toys, and slopes are where they hurt people. CPSC estimated about 35,000 riding mower-related injuries, treated in emergency rooms annually in the 2012 to 2014 period, and in an earlier window attributed an annual average of roughly 90 deaths. Loss of stability is a huge share of it. Mow up and down a slope, not across it. Stay well back from ditches, retaining walls and pond edges, a couple of mower widths, not one. And no passengers, ever, no matter how much the kid wants a ride. A review of pediatric mower injuries found riding mowers accounted for about 76% of cases, and the single most common mechanism was a child struck by someone else riding the mower forward. Right, you're 4 in, and you're still here, which tells me you're the sort who checks under things. Good. Let's stop and look at the shape of this before we carry on. Notice what the first 4 have in common. Not one of them failed because of the engine. The Craftsman's problem is its gearbox. The Troy-Bilt's problem is the mismatch between a small drive system and a big yard. The Deere's warranty runs out in hours, not seasons. And number 4 isn't a mower at all, it's a component. From here on, the machines get more expensive and the failures get more interesting, because the next stretch is 0 turns. And 0 turns don't have one transaxle to go wrong, they have 2. Number 9 is still coming, and if you buy anything used this year, it's the one that could actually bite you. Number 5. The $2,500 to $3,000 0 turn with sealed EZT-type transaxles. Every major brand has one of these at the bottom of its 0 turn range. Same recipe, a stamped deck, a residential frame, and a pair of small integrated hydro units, one per rear wheel, universally described as sealed for life and non-serviceable. The failures reported by owners cluster in the mid-hundreds of hours, and the giveaway is that one side gets weak before the other. The machine starts pulling toward the tired side. You correct with the lap bars all day, and you assume it needs adjustment. Sometimes it does. Often it's a pump that's stopped making pressure. I want to be straight about my standing here. That mid-hundreds figure comes from forum reports, not from survey data. And forums are where unhappy people go. Nobody posts to say their transaxle worked fine for 8 years. So take it as a pattern, not a statistic. But here's a fact that isn't a forum rumor. Hydrogear later started advertising drain ports on units like these as a feature, now serviceable, easy oil changes, right there in the marketing. You don't add drain ports to a sealed lifetime product unless somebody worked out that the lifetime wasn't long enough. That's an engineering department quietly telling on a marketing department, and I have a lot of respect for whoever pushed it through. Number 6, Husqvarna's residential 0 turns. I need to be careful and fair here because Husqvarna makes a lot of machines and some of them are excellent. They're light commercial stuff. with the fabricated deck and cast iron spindles with grease fittings, is a genuinely different animal. But in the trade coverage of Consumer Reports' zero-turn brand table, Husqvarna sits at the bottom for predicted reliability. I'll flag that CR's actual table is behind a membership wall, so I'm reading it secondhand through people who have access, and I'd rather tell you that than pretend I'm quoting the source directly. Take the Excite Z350 as the example, listed around $5,499 and sold as a residential machine. Owner reviews on Husqvarna's own site average around 3.8 stars across a few dozen reviews. People like the ride and the power. The complaints that show up are batteries, drive pumps, and broken deck spindles. Spindles are worth 30 seconds. The spindle is the vertical shaft your blade bolts to, riding in bearings inside a housing welded to the deck. On a stamped deck, that housing is attached to sheet metal that flexes every time you clip a root or drop a wheel in a hole. Flex works the welds. Worked welds crack. Then the bearing goes. Then you're eating blades. A fabricated deck is thicker plate welded up rather than pressed from one sheet, and a good one gives you a grease fitting on each spindle so you can actually keep them alive. Cheap deck, sealed spindle, no fitting. That's a wear item with an expiry date and no way to extend it. Quick pause. That's 6 covered and 4 to go. And if this is turning out to be useful, subscribing is the whole ask. It costs you nothing, and it's how these keep getting made. Then we get to number 7, which is a mower I actually like, sold in a place that can't fix it. Number 7, Bad Boy. Specifically, buying one from a retailer that doesn't service them. In that same CR-derived ranking, Bad Boy lands just above Husqvarna at the bottom end, which is not where you'd expect given the machines themselves. The MZ Magnum, Kohler-powered, 54-inch cut, sits around $3,999 at Tractor Supply and carries something like a 4.7-star average across more than 3,000 reviews. That is a lot of happy owners. Genuinely. So what's the problem? Read the unhappy ones. Hard starting, failed clutches, cracked decks, normal stuff. But the loudest and angriest complaints aren't about the machine at all. They're about slow warranty response and about the store having no service department. Tractor Supply sells them. Tractor Supply does not, in most locations, fix them. That's the trap, and it applies to any brand sold through a store with no shop out the back. When the electric PTO clutch fails on a Tuesday in June, and PTO clutches do fail, they're a wear item. You don't need a salesman. You need somebody with a lift, a parts account, and a warranty code. If the nearest person who can do all three is 90 minutes away and doesn't return calls, the strength of the mower stops mattering. Before you buy anything, ask one question. Where does this go when it breaks, and who pays to get it there? If the answer involves you renting a trailer, adjust your price expectations accordingly. Number 8, Ariens Residential Zero Turns. They round out the bottom 3 in that same reading of CR's brand data, and this one genuinely puzzles me, because Ariens is a 90-plus-year-old family firm that owns Gravely, and Gravely's Zero Turns come out respectably in the same data set. Same corporate parent, meaningfully different results. Sources I trust disagree about how much daylight there really is between the two, and where they disagree, I take the conservative view. The residential Ariens lines and the Gravely commercial lines are not the same machine wearing different stickers, and you should not buy the red one assuming you're getting the other one cheaper. The Ariens Apex 52, around $5,999, is a well-liked mower with a Kawasaki engine, and I've met nobody who regrets one. But at $6,000, you are within a few hundred of genuinely commercial hardware, a fabricated deck, greasable spindles, and separate serviceable pumps and wheel motors instead of 2 integrated boxes. At that price, do the comparison. That's all I'm saying. Number 9, and this is the shortest item on the list because it doesn't need any elaboration. Any model year 2025 Spartan SRT XD or KGZ-XD zero-turn inside the recalled serial range. On November 20th, 2025, about 650 of them were recalled because the steering arm dampers can be installed incorrectly, which can produce an unexpected bouncing motion and loss of operator control. 15 reports of unexpected bouncing. 1 minor injury reported. The remedy is a free repair. Model and serial are on a metal plate on the frame, right in front of your feet. If you're shopping used or from a clearance floor, check the serial against the CPSC notice before money moves. It takes 2 minutes and it's free. Number 10. The battery-powered rider bought as a 20-year machine. I'm not anti-electric. Instant torque, no carburetor to gum up over winter, no spark plug, no oil change. And you can hold a conversation while you mow. All real. But look at what Consumer Reports says about them, because it's more honest than most marketing. They collect survey data on battery riders, and they explicitly do not yet publish reliability or owner satisfaction ratings for that group, because the category hasn't been widely available long enough. That's not a criticism of electric mowers. That's a statement that nobody, not CR, not me, not the salesman, actually knows how these age, and anybody who tells you otherwise is guessing. The number you need is the pack. On the Ryobi 80-volt riders, an owner 2.5 years in reported a failed pack and replacement cost around $800 each through Ryobi, and that machine carries 3 of them. Ryobi covers the batteries for 5 years in home use, and the mower for 5 years or a set hour cap, and those are decent terms. But run the arithmetic to year 7 past the coverage, on a machine where the batteries can represent a large share of what you paid. Compare it honestly against a gas rider, where the expensive failure is a $400 transaxle, and the cheap ones are a belt and a plug. If you mow a flat acre, hate noise, and you're comfortable being early on a technology, buy one. Just buy it with your eyes open about the second decade. Now let me tell you what I think is actually going on, because none of this is bad luck. There's a word doing an enormous amount of work in this industry, and the word is sealed. Sometimes it's maintenance-free. Sometimes it's non-serviceable, which is the most dishonest of the 3, because it sounds like a description of physics. None of them are physics. Every one of them is a sentence somebody chose to write. Here's the documentation. Tuff Torq's own guidance on their transaxles says, roughly, that for consumer use, oil changing isn't emphasized, because most homeowners aren't equipped or in the habit, and that for most residential applications, the unit should outlast the machine. Then, in the same breath, it says that changing the oil will extend the life of the unit and greatly improve performance, and gives you the interval. First change at 50 hours, then every couple hundred thereafter. And it adds a parenthetical that you should read twice. Do it unless doing so voids your warranty, and check with your tractor's manufacturer. Sit with that. The company that engineered the part tells you servicing it makes it last longer, and then tells you to check whether the company that bolted it to your mower will punish you for doing it. So follow the money down the chain. The transaxle maker sells to the Mower brand. The Mower brand decides 3 things: what fluid goes in it, whether to fit a drain plug, and what the maintenance schedule in your manual says. On a huge number of machines, the answers have been conventional 10W30, rather than the synthetic the maker recommends, no drain plug at all, and a manual that lists the transaxle under nothing, because a schedule with no procedure in it is cheaper to print and cheaper to defend. And the arithmetic lands on your side of the counter. A repair kit for one of these runs somewhere north of $400 before a single hour of anybody's labor on a tractor that cost you $2,000. A shop quote to pull it, split it, rebuild it, and reinstall it puts you close enough to a new machine that most people just buy the new machine, which is, from a distance, exactly the outcome the word sealed produces. I want to be precise about what I'm accusing them of, because I don't think this is a conspiracy, and I don't think anybody sat in a room plotting against you. Nobody designed your transaxle to die. What happened is smaller and more ordinary than that. A warranty department worked out that a certain number of customers would botch a fluid change and put grit in the hydraulics, and that covering those claims cost more than the failures caused by never changing the fluid at all, because most of those failures happen after the coverage expires anyway. So they took the plug off. It's a defensible decision on a spreadsheet. It's just that the spreadsheet wasn't yours. You got the version of the machine that's cheapest to warranty, not the version that's cheapest to own. And the word sealed is how that swap got past you without a conversation. Then notice what happened next, because this is the part I find almost funny. Hydrogear started advertising optional drain ports as a new feature. Now serviceable. Easy oil changes. The same capability that was impossible last decade is a selling point this decade, and you can pay extra for the privilege of being allowed to maintain the thing you own. You know the word now. It's not going to work on you again. When you see sealed, maintenance-free, or non-serviceable on any machine, mower, appliance, car, anything, the question isn't whether it's true. The question is, who benefits from the plug being gone? Let me climb up one level, though, because I don't want the takeaway to be cynicism. Cynicism is easy and it doesn't cut any grass. The real skill here isn't knowing which 10 mowers to avoid. Models change. Next spring there'll be new ones. The skill is being able to walk up to a machine you've never seen, crouch down, and read it, because a machine will tell you what it thinks of you if you know where to look. Grease fittings on the spindles mean somebody expected you to maintain it and respected you enough to make it possible. A drain plug on the transaxle means the same thing. A deck you can tap with a knuckle and hear a dull thud instead of a tinny ring means somebody spent money where it doesn't show in a photograph. That reading is a real skill, and it's one of the few that gets more valuable the older you get. It transfers too. It's the same skill that tells you which contractor to hire and which used truck to walk away from. It's the ability to tell the difference between something built to be sold and something built to be used. Those look identical under showroom lighting and nothing alike after 5 years. And it's a skill you can hand to somebody. That's the part I like. Nobody's teaching this in a store, because nobody in a store makes money teaching it. So here's the procedure. Not a rule of thumb, an actual sequence you can run on any machine with your own numbers. Before you shop, write down 2 figures, your acreage and your worst slope. Be honest about the slope, walk it. If you'd hesitate to jog up it, it's steeper than you think. Then at the machine, 5 checks, in this order. 1. Get on the ground with a flashlight and find the transaxle. Read the model number off the case. Then look for a drain plug. Plug present means serviceable, and serviceable means you control how long it lives. 2. Knock on the deck and look at how the spindles mount. Grease fittings are a yes. Sealed spindles on a thin stamped deck on a machine you're buying for 3 acres is a no. 3. Ask for the warranty in hours, not years. Then divide it by your annual hours. Acreage and mowing speed will tell you roughly, and most homeowners land between 30 and 60 hours a season. 120 hours over 2 years is a very different promise than 500 hours over 5. 4. Ask where it gets serviced and how it gets there. If the answer is the store you bought it from, ask whether that store has a shop. Many don't. 5. Search the model against the CPSC recall list before you pay, especially used. Free, fast, and occasionally it saves somebody's hand. Then the decision rule. Take the price. Divide by the hours the drivetrain is realistically good for. A $2,200 tractor that gives you 500 hours costs you about $4.40 an hour. A $4,000 machine that gives you 1,500 hours costs you about $270. Run it on the 2 machines actually in front of you. If the cheap one wins on your numbers, buy the cheap one with a clear conscience. Sometimes it does, especially on a small flat lot. And if you already own one of these, don't panic and don't replace anything. Just find out whether your transaxle has a drain plug. And if it does, put fresh synthetic through it this fall. That one afternoon buys back years. Here's what that gets you. Not a better mower. A bill that never shows up. Some Saturday in 2031 you'll be halfway up the slope in the heat, and it'll pull the same as it did when it was new. And you'll finish, and you'll put it away, and nothing whatsoever will happen. That's the whole prize. The absence of a $1,400 week in June, and a conversation about whether it's worth fixing. Now I want to hear from you, and specifically from the people whose experience contradicts mine. Tell me the hours on your meter and what failed first. Not the brand, the hours and the part. That's the data nobody publishes, and it's the only thing that settles this. If you've got a K46 with 900 hours on it that still climbs, say so, because I'll take that seriously. And it belongs in the record right next to the ones that died at 400. And if you're running a stamped deck budget zero turn that's outlived every prediction I've made here, I want that too. I read what comes in. Not out of duty, because half of what I know about how these things actually fail came from somebody in a comments section describing a noise I hadn't heard yet. One thing I deliberately left alone today. That Consumer Reports survey a few years back found the single most commonly reported problem on riding mowers wasn't the engine or the transaxle at all. It was the belt on around 14% of machines, with engine and deck problems next. I don't fully buy that belts are just wear items on every deck. I think some deck belt roadings are simply wrong. Too many idlers, too tight a wrap, too little room to shed clippings. And I've got a stack of half-formed evidence for that and nothing solid enough to put in front of you yet. I'm working on it. When I've got it nailed down, it'll be here. That's 10. Check the plug, check the fittings, check the hours, and go look under the thing before you sign anything. Keep the blades sharp and the slope behind you.